This is Mike Tatro, and welcome to the Marinus podcast, where I talk to all sorts of people about their successes, their failures, the stories we tell ourselves, and how that plays out in our lives. Today I'm excited to share the third episode with my good friend Javon Gilliam, principal timpanist of the National Symphony Orchestra, co-founder of We Over Me Productions, a faculty member at the University of Maryland, as well as the owner of Capital Percussion. In this episode, Javon and I talk about mentors, the effect that mentors have had on our lives, as well as the effect that we as mentors can have on the lives of others. Towards the end of this episode, we get into a couple rapid-fire questions, including Javon's favorite character in a movie or TV show growing up, which you'll definitely want to check out. Hope you enjoy. So you mentioned John Crable and how everyone needs a mentor, and I've heard you speak about him before in the past. So I'm curious, in addition to him being a mentor to you, did you have a sense that you were like part of a community in any way, or was it just kind of like you mentioned your dad kind of isolated you from things, and it was just more in some ways like you and your dad and going to church, and that was like a unit. Did you have something similar at Butler, or was it a bigger studio vibe?
I did. I mean, so my second year at Butler was John's first, and he, like that first group of students, like there's a group of like 4 or 5 of us, and like we are still pretty close, like, I mean, 2 of us are in orchestras. I'm in DC, the other guy's in Auckland, New Zealand. One of the other guys is a studio musician in Austin, Texas. Like, one of the other guys owns a fast food chain. Like we have all sort of, I think another guy's a cop. Like, and one of the other guys is one of the military bands. Like, we're all over the place, but like we all sort of like, grew together and made our mistakes together. So there was definitely a bit of camaraderie. And looking back, like Crabill's demeanor, Crabill's the way that he, cultivates a studio is, again, it was perfect for me. It's exactly the way that I have tried to do the same thing at, the University of Manitoba and now at the University of Maryland, which is, the phrase that I use is drum love. Like you just want, first thing is you want to make sure that you treat people with respect. And the second thing is you want to try to make sure that you encourage them to be good people. And then the third thing is you want to worry about drums and all this other stuff, right? But the first thing is making sure that you create a culture of sort of respect and trust and inclusivity, not necessarily inclusivity with like Black Lives Matter and all this other stuff, because that wasn't necessarily the case back in the 90s, but like just making sure that you feel welcome. Yeah. And, and you make sure that you're good people and good person. And maybe worry about, triple bounces or, paradiddles or pataflaflas or whatever. All that stuff is sort of, secondary, tertiary to like creating good people, because creating good relationships. And that's how you sort of build a community of good people. So yeah, he definitely had that. And again, this is me in hindsight answering this question. Sure, I didn't know that's what I was dealing with when I got there. Yeah. Of course nobody does, but like looking back, I just actually saw him on a Zoom call yesterday. And, like he knows how I feel about him. He knows that I wouldn't be me without him. So without him being him. And so, yeah, for sure. I definitely think that there was a community vibe there, and that obviously instilled it in me to sort of pay it forward once I had the opportunity to do the same thing at the schools I've taught at.
Javon, you could chat for 7 more hours, and I desperately want to at that sushi place in San Diego where we met up.
Yum.
Oh, it's good business in the way. We do something called 5 and 5. We just do 5 rapid fire questions in 5 minutes. We'll just kind of run through those real quick before we wrap up. So the first is, do you have any mentors now that you look up to or meet with or lean on for support?
Yes, I do. 2 people come to mind. His name is Jim Nevels, and my business partner for We Over Me, Earl Stafford. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. And how did you get to know them? Did you reach out to them or?
I met Jim through a sort of a business retreat that he picked me up from the airport. We both were at the airport at the same time. I didn't know him. The person that put this retreat together said, "Hey, you guys are coming in at the same time. Can you guys carpool?" Because it was like an hour from the airport. We met in the car. We talked it up, and it was really like, I don't want to say friends at first sight, because he's definitely, he is a friend, but he's a mentor. It was like we connected right off the bat, and he's been very helpful for me for the last several years. And Earl, I met Earl through We Over Me, or I met Earl and we created We Over Me, but Earl's, been a really great help the last several months, just trying to help me find my way.
Awesome. Who is your favorite character in a book or movie as a kid?
Eddie Murphy, Coming to America. King of Zamunda.
So good. The sequel's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, and I saw that Amazon they just paid, but million or but billion of dollars for it. So it's going to be probably gonna be on Prime, which means we're all going to get to see it in COVID, which means it's going to be great. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good. What book or documentary do you most often recommend?
Wow.
Documentaries.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge book reader. My wife side eyes me all the time for that. But I am a documentary person. I mean, sometimes for better or for worse. I think 13 is obviously a great one. Given what we've been talking about these days. And like as far as like what we've been dealing with, that has been a documentary that I've sort of pointed people to. People ask about like books, and How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi is another book that I think has been great that I have read. And like I think those are kind of the things that sort of were in the situation we are now. But for me, to be honest, like people always ask me, what do you listen to as a musician? And I say nothing. If I'm working, I'm listening to what I'm working on. If I'm not working, I'm watching sports or listening to sports radio. And it's the same thing with like sort of like TV for me. If I'm not working, I'm either watching, Breaking Bad for the fifth time, or I'm hanging out with my wife watching her, her TV shows to connect with her. It's not really like the biggest thing for me, but 13 for sure. It's great.
Yes, awesome. You have a day entirely free of obligations. I'm not sure you can even imagine this right now, but let's just say you have a day entirely free of obligations. So what does that look like? What do you do?
I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna get up and get back in the bed, sleep, and then I'll probably get up, shower, PlayStation 4 or 5. I was able to pre-order one, so that's great. PlayStation 5. I'm a big Final Fantasy nut, so if there's Final Fantasy out, I'll be doing that, and then I go back to sleep. Sleep. Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
All right, last one. What advice would you give to your 10-year-old self and your 20-year-old self?
10 years old, your dad is a hard ass, but he means well. So keep pushing through. Right. 20-year-old self, just don't do it. Whatever you're about to do, just don't do it. Do the other thing. But you don't listen. So it would have just been whatever you think you should do the opposite. Because but in hindsight, that's how I took my lumps, and that's how you learn. But like if I could learn from that, yeah, whatever you think you should do, don't do it. Do the opposite thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, one thing that's come out in our conversation this morning is that, I mean, you said at the beginning with regard to your students, but you've mentioned it a bunch of times in stuff that you've done, is that you take your lumps and you just keep going. Like seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that you have this internal story of like, yeah, there's bumps, there's lumps, but the difference is what are you going to do with them?
That's how you grow, man. You learn when you can learn from those mistakes, when you can, it's the best when you can actually in the moment understand that and then learn from it. But that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. But like in hindsight, obviously, yeah, for sure, man. Like life is hard. Everybody's life is hard. Everybody has a hard life. Even if you're Paris Hilton and you've got, the best, the easiest life ever, you're going to make it hard. You're going to make decisions that are going to make it hard for you, no matter how it is. And so how you deal with those things is really what creates the character, creates you as a person. And I definitely haven't done it right. I've definitely made plenty of mistakes, for sure. But at the end of the day, I hopefully that, when I take my last breath, I can say for sure that like I did the best I could, and the best I could help some people out, which is all really matters.
You can find more of my conversation with Siobhan over at miketatro.com/podcast. There you can also sign up for future episodes to be delivered straight to your inbox. I'll have new episodes with all sorts of interesting people every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. In the meantime, hope you're staying healthy and safe, and thanks for listening.